Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Some backstory. I love the Witchlands series by Susan Leonard. It is one of my favourite series of all time. I adore it with every fibre of my being. And the fourth book, or the fifth installment, because there is a novella, which you have to read, is coming out in a week. So I was originally going to do a video where I vlog reading my most anticipated release of the year, because it is like #1 most important book that I read this year. And then I realized I'm not sure many people would watch that. So I'm going to give you 10 reasons why you should read the Witchlands series. And then I'm going to do a vlog of me reading it. So you can listen to me as I tell you why you should read it. Then you can go read them. And then you can come back and watch me scream over Witch Shadow. What are the Witchlands books about? Which, please ignore the fact, every single one of my editions is different. Every single one. I love them anyway. The Witchlands series is set in this magical world, and we're on the continent of the Witchlands. So each of the books follows a different main character, but we also get the perspectives of all of the main characters. So the first book is Truth Witch, and the Truth Witch of the series is Sapphi, but we do also get 3 other perspectives in here who are main characters, but Truth Witch is like Sapphi's book. So she's like the main focus of it, even though we get everyone else's perspective. And that's how the series works. So same with Wind Witch. This is Merrick's book. Sight Witch is a little different because it's actually a character that we didn't get the perspective of in the first 2 books. This is the novella, and you do have to read the novella. So this one follows Ryber, who isn't technically one of our main characters from the previous books. She's a side character, but it's still important. And then Blood Witch follows Adun. Truth Witch is Sapphi's book, and we follow Sapphi as, at the start of the book, her and her thread sister, Isolde, they are trying to steal back some money that Sapphi lost in a card game, and things in this plan do not work out, and they end up capturing the attention of a Blood Witch, and they end up having to go on the run, and that is just the start of the series. Things get crazier from there, but I'll just give you that much. Why should you read these? #1, the world building is incredible. This series, it is marketed as YA, I think in America, and in the UK it is technically adult, though I do feel like it's a mix of both. I think the world building is definitely one that is like super complicated and is kind of more on the adult side, whereas I guess in Truth Witch we follow, because Sapphi is our main character and we're following her story, she goes through a very typical YA kind of coming of age thing. But as I said, the world building is something that is more on the complicated adult side. There are a lot of countries, like I mentioned in here. In this, there is also this 20-year truce. So we are following the politics of all of these countries who have a lot of power, and then some countries that have very little power. And we're seeing how they all play out and how they're all against each other. We have been getting a lot of like the politics, and we've been getting some countries' backstories. There is some countries that I want to still know more about, and I'm sure that we will get that because every book is just expanding on this world more and more. Reason #2 why you should read these books is the magic system. So this does kind of tie into the world building, obviously, but I wanted to make a whole other category because I think the magic system in here is such a beautiful balance between familiar and something completely new. So for example, there are 6 kind of elements in here. So we have the typical ones that we already know. So fire, water, air, and earth. I forgot earth for a minute there. And then we also have 2 other ones called aether and void. And obviously we're already seeing that familiar elemental magic that we all know and love. At least me, I love elemental magic. There are also these aether and void, which are very unique and have some really interesting parts of them because these can be broken down. So a wind witch is actually part of an air witch, but like there's not many full air witches because that is very powerful. So like Merrick, he only controls the wind, not like all of the air. And so same, we see like water witches, but there's like tide witches. There's like breakdowns of all of these elements as well. Aether and void is where like, I guess kind of the creativity and uniqueness comes in. We have like thread witches. So thread witches, which is one of my things that I love, is Like, they can just see the threads that bind people in life. Like, you can see threads that just, like, threads of friendship and threads of love and just all of this kind of stuff. And then also, of course, we also have, like, a truth witch, which is also part of Aether. And so they can tell truth from lies. Also, in the magic system, there is some, like, fascinating mythology in it. So there is, like, the Carawen, and there is the Paladins, and we're still learning more and more about them in each book, and it's a very fun game trying to, like, predict stuff, but, like, I'm terrible at it. I'm always wrong. Reason number 3 why you should read the Witchlands series is because of Safi and Isolde and their friendship. I read a lot of YA fantasy and also a lot of adult fantasy, and it is so rare, I think, to see 2 female friends as the main characters. It's just absolutely adorable. A lot of the books I've read, like, for example, the ones behind me, so, like, the Raven Cycle, it's 1 girl and then 4 boys, and then, like, even, like, I don't know, Six of Crows, yes, like, Nina and Inej are friends, but it's not a story that revolves around their friendship, whereas especially the first book, Truth Witch, it really is a story of their friendship, and it has some really sweet moments in there, and their banter sometimes is just so funny, and I adore them so much. It's a really beautiful part of it, and I love female friendships in books, and I don't think there's enough of them in fantasy. I think a lot of time fantasy books can, especially YA, focus more on the romance than friendships, and I love friendships in books, okay? So give me all of the friendships. And there is also some other really great friendships in here, but I'm just talking about Safi and Isolde because they're 2 women, and I love that. And so, speaking of romance, we'll move on to reason number 4, which is the romance in here, because yes, there are some incredible friendships in here. And yes, I know I was just saying that YA sometimes focuses on the romance too much, but when I tell you, this series has one of my favorite ships of all time, and I haven't reread Blood Witch yet, but there is a scene in Blood Witch that I honestly think I'm gonna cry when I reread it, because find your romance that can make you do that. This series has one of my favorite ships of all time. Of all time. Just number 1. I love it so much. There's also some really fun, like, crack ships that in the, like, fandom, if you go on there, some people have just, like, crazy headcanons and they're so entertaining, so I would definitely check those out if you have read the series, because you can basically ship everyone in this series and it's great. And another great thing is there is a lot of just casual LGBTQ plus rep in here, and I think there is going to be more to come. There is a lot of people that I can see being ships. I'm not exactly sure who I ship yet, because there's one particular person I'm thinking of, and I'm not sure. There's 2 people that I could possibly ship them with, so I'm not sure who I'm rooting for there, but both of them are women, so I'm hoping. And also in here is some really fun romance tropes. I'll list some of them off for you. So there is enemies to lovers. There is also a really slow burn, though it's not really slow burn, because, like, I mean, the course of the books is like 2 weeks, but because it's like a full book, it feels longer. There is a ballroom dance scene, which I know a lot of people love. There is also kind of a soulmate trope, because there are heart threads in here, so you're, like, connected to this person. You love this person a lot. And then there is possibly a friends to lover. We will see. We will see. Reason number 5 is the characters. Again, these all connect into the friendships and the romance. All of these interactions is what makes the characters so amazing. I adore the characters. Isolde is one of my favorite characters of all time, and as well as a lot of other ones. I'm not gonna sit here and list all of the characters. There's a lot of characters in here that I consider some of my favorites. The women in here, they are, like, so powerful, and they all have such great development, and they don't fall into that, like, any, like, sexist tropes, which I hate. Like, women, like, against women, I hate it. As I said, there's a lot of friendships. There is possibly romances. They're, like, also powerful in their own ways, even if they're not, like, actually, like, magically powerful. They're just so well developed, and in every book we are seeing more and more development in them, and I just absolutely love it. This also goes for the male characters in the books as well. They are also very complicated, and they are also very well developed. Each of the characters have their own backstories, and they're all so wonderful. I just can't deal with how great the backstories are. Each character has their own, and it is so well developed and so well thought out, and it really adds to the characters and makes you understand ways that they act, and I love when backstories do that. Reason number 6 is because it is super fast-paced and action-packed, and this reason might be a reason that turns some people off, because I've learned recently that not everyone likes really fast-paced action-packed books, which surprised me because I really do. Especially like in the middle of books, there's often that like drawn out of build-up, and I don't feel that with the Witchlands series, but yet some people don't look for that in books. If that's not for you, give them a try anyway, you might like them. But that is something I really love. I really love when like books just keep going and don't stop, and it's just constant movement and constant action, and it is such a page turner, and the plot in here is just building. Reason number 7 is the family relationships, and not just like biological family, there's also a lot of found family relationships in here, which again is another trope I know a lot of people love, including myself. Well, as I said, there's great found family relationships because there are like thread family, so it's not actually biological. It's like, for example, Safi and Isolde, they called each other thread sisters, and in it we see that these thread family, this found family, is a lot of the time more important than biological family, and I love that. But then on like the biological side, there's also some really complicated family dynamics, like real complicated, and especially there is one really complicated sibling relationship which is kind of messy, and I kind of love it. And I can't tell you details about it because it would be a spoiler for the second book, but it is so good because you get the 2 point of views, and they are just constantly contradicting each other in their own point of views, and it's just like, ugh, you're idiots, and I love you. I love some sibling relationships, whether complicated or like really friendly, and there is also some really complicated parental relationships as well, and I can't really tell you more than that, but I will say most of the parents in here kind of suck. So yeah. Reason number 8 why I love this series is the foreshadowing, and again, this is one that you only really realize on reread, which I am currently doing, and it just makes me feel so stupid because I'm like, it was right there all the time. It was right there all the time, and I'm sure that there are things that are going to be in Witch Shadow and things that are going to be in the final book that there has also been foreshadowing for in like the first book, and I am also going to go back and reread it and be like, wow, I am an idiot. And I can't wait for that. I love when books do that to me. And again, that ties into why it is so vital for you to read Sight Witch. I actually didn't own this. I only had Truth Witch, Wind Witch, Blood Witch, and I was just planning on reading them. And then I just saw someone mention, oh, I like online being like, oh yeah, Sight Witch is really important. And so I actually got the ebook, and I'm so glad I did because I would have completely missed things that happened in Blood Witch, and even there are things in here in Sight Witch that I completely missed the first time, and I was like, it was so obvious. And again, that's another thing I know is very personal to me, is I love to reread books. I love it. I love to reread my favorite series, and this is a series that can be reread countless times. A lot of my favorite series are series that I can read over and over and over again, and I think with this series, more than any other series that I love, except maybe like Robin Hobb, I haven't actually reread any of her books, but I know that I miss things. These ones, more than like any other book, when I reread them, I'm actually getting a new experience. This is only my first time rereading them, but I'm actually catching things that I didn't realize. And so it's not just a comfort of being with these characters again, though it most certainly is. You are also actually getting details that you completely gloss over the first time. And it is just absolutely mind-blowing to me that everything is just foreshadowing, and it's just brilliantly done. So reason number 9 why I think you should read these books is because every single book gets better. And I think that is such a hard thing to do. I read so many series where the first book I have loved, and then the rest of the books have just completely let me down. Whereas this series, it just gets better and better. Every single book raises the stakes. Every single book develops and expands and just builds on everything we know. Every single one has better writing than the previous ones. It has an improvement in the plot, in the characters. I just don't know how Susan Dennard keeps doing it, because I'm just constantly being mind blown by how good the series is getting. I definitely recommend you try at least 2 of them before you decide whether you want to stop or not. Obviously, like, if you hate this, which, like, how is that possible? Like, how is that possible? Then, like, don't. But, like, I think you should at least read the first 2 before you make any decisions about the series. Blood Witch, this is one of my favorite books of all time. Like, I know I said Witchlands is, like, one of my favorite series, but I mean, this is, like, one of my favorite books of all time. I think this is probably either number 1 or number 2, I think, of, like, favorite book ever. And I'm not sure how Witch Shadow is going to compare, but I have high expectations. So maybe I should lower them because I don't want to set impossible standards, but I have very high standards. So I'm very excited. And then the final reason I think you should read the Witchlands series is because of Susan Dennard, the author, who is just absolutely amazing. Like, obviously I don't know her, but from what I've seen, like, she is just one of the most amazing people. I love how she interacts with fans of the series. Like, she has a Discord, she is constantly reblogging things on Tumblr, answering a lot of asks, and hosting giveaways and retweeting things, and it is so nice. She is probably one of the top most, like, interactive authors I have seen. It's just, like, so lovely to see an author, like, build that relationship with fans of the series. And she also does this thing that I really respect, because I feel like a lot of authors won't talk about things that they regret doing in their series, or they won't talk about improvements they wish that they know that they could have done. They're just like, brush it under the rug. But Susan Dennard is so open with things she wishes she knew when she was first writing the series, and things she wishes she had changed, but she can't change it now because it's like 4 books in. And again, that's something I really respect. For example, she talked about the naming that she does, because I saw someone ask, like, a white character has, like, an Arabic name, and, like, an Asian inspired character have, like, a German name, and all of this. And she's just, like, really open about the fact that when she started the series, she was just, like, using names that sounded fantasy-ish. And again, that's just something I really respect, is to be open. I mean, she was also doing a whole newsletter of how to write a book, and that was also, like, filled with some really interesting things. She just seems like a really lovely person. That is all. So those are 10 reasons why I think you should read the Witchlands series by Susan Dennard. But just, like, one more bonus reason number 11 why you should read it is because I want you to. Okay? I'm telling you to read it. So thank you guys so much for watching. I do hope you enjoyed, and I do hope I have convinced you to read the Witchlands series. As I said, I really do love this series so much, and it has basically become a part of my personality, especially on BookTube. I feel like I just never shut up about it. Now I've done a whole long video on why you should read this, so next time I want to speak about an hour about this series, I will just link this. As I said, thank you guys so much for watching. I do hope you enjoyed. If you did, subscribe, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye!